The rain in the alley was less of a drizzle and more of a vertical river, washing the refuse and the lingering smell of cheap disinfectant down the cracked concrete. Maya Thompson pulled her tattered raincoat tighter around her thin frame, her gaze fixed on the glowing red neon sign of Lingerette Deluxe. It was 11:47 p.m. She had just finished her second shift, cleaning the floors of a failing gym, and was now dragging herself home to her tiny fifth-floor walk-up apartment above the laundromat. She was tired enough that the ache in her feet had ascended to a dull, throbbing numbness. Maya was used to the grim reality of this city's underbelly, the perpetual dampness, the shadows, the low hum of desperation. She had lived in this neighborhood her entire 27 years. A hard-working, resilient woman whose dreams had long since been scaled back to simple goals. Keep the lights on, keep the stomach full, and maybe one day afford a pair of boots that didn't let the cold seep in. She was passing the steel dumpster, its lid askew, when she stopped. The heavy rhythmic drumming of the rain and the groan of the old washing machines downstairs almost masked the sound. But Maya's senses, honed by years of navigating danger, caught it. A thin, reedy whimper. It wasn't the sound of an adult or the rough cry of an addict. It was the sound of a small, lost thing. Maya hesitated, her heart immediately beginning to hammer a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Every survival instinct screamed at her to keep walking, to mind her own business, to not tangle herself up in something that could only lead to trouble. But the whimper came again, impossibly fragile against the backdrop of the storm. "Hello," Maya called out, her voice rough from the gym's stale air conditioning. She took a cautious step around the dumpster. Tucked into the damp, narrow gap between the dumpster's base and the brick wall, curled into a ball so small she was almost invisible, was a child. The girl, who couldn't have been more than 7, was a portrait of misplaced wealth and utter desolation. She was wearing a little emerald green dress made of what Maya instinctively knew was expensive silk, now saturated and clinging to her skin. Her hair, a dark glossy curtain, was plastered to her forehead, and her small, pale hands were clutched tightly to her chest. She was shivering with a violence that made her whole body shudder, her lips a faint bluish color. Maya dropped her heavy gym bag and rushed forward, sinking instantly to her knees in a puddle of icy rainwater. "Hey, honey." "Oh, sweetie, you're freezing." The girl didn't react to the touch. Maya gently slid her arm beneath the child's shoulders, feeling the shocking cold radiating off her small body. She was barely conscious, her eyes wide and glassy, staring blankly past Maya's face. "Can you tell me your name?" Maya asked, trying to keep her voice steady and warm. "What are you doing out here? Where are your parents?" The girl's mouth worked. A tiny spasm of movement, but no sound emerged. She tried once, twice, a raspy, failed attempt at speech before dissolving into a silent, shaking cry. Her condition was rapidly deteriorating. She was clearly in shock, perhaps hypothermic, and terrified beyond words. "I have to get her inside," Maya thought, the urgency cutting through her exhaustion. She scooped the child up. Despite the expensive dress, the girl was feather-light. Maya struggled to her feet and, abandoning her bag, carried the girl into the Lingerette Deluxe entryway. The attendant, a tired woman named Ruth, gave her a brief, uninterested look before returning to her magazine. Maya ignored her, pushing through the service door and taking the narrow, rickety stairs 2 at a time, cradling the shivering weight against her neck. Her apartment, a cramped one-room box, was blessedly warm thanks to the ancient radiator. Maya laid the girl carefully on her only piece of semi-comfortable furniture, a threadbare sofa covered in a clean, though faded quilt. She worked quickly, her movements precise despite her mounting panic. She stripped the girl of the soaked silk dress, wrapping her in her own thick, worn fleece blanket, the warmest thing she owned. She heated water on her small electric stove, making weak sugary ginger tea and forcing a small spoonful between the girl's trembling lips. As the child began to warm slightly, her body still shaking, but less violently, Maya noticed something clutched tightly in the girl's left fist. Gently, Maya worked the small fingers open. It was a piece of expensive thick cardstock laminated to protect it from the rain. Scrolled across it in a confident slanted adult hand was a single imposing name, a brief address, and a phone number. The name was simple, almost dismissive. The address was in the notoriously exclusive high-security financial district miles from this alley. The phone number had a prefix Maya recognized as belonging to private, untraceable lines used by the city's elite. And printed underneath in shaky childlike letters was one word, Dada. Maya's stomach plummeted. This wasn't a case of a family accidentally separating. This child wasn't just wealthy. She was high value. The location, the private line, the lack of any security or identifying marks. It screamed danger. People with this kind of wealth and security didn't just lose their children in back alleys unless something went terribly wrong, something violent. The name Vincent Chun resonated in the city's dark corners, a name often spoken in hushed, reverent, and terrified tones. Even in her limited world, Maya had heard the whispers. The Korean man who had quietly consolidated power in the city's financial underworld, controlling everything from high-stakes gambling to private security operations that were far too effective. He was a ghost in the shadows known for his precision and his absolute terrifying ruthlessness. He was, in short, a mafia boss. Maya looked down at the tiny, innocent face nestled in her fleece blanket. The girl's eyes fluttered, still distant, still locked in shock, but she was alive. She was warmer. Maya had a choice. Call the police and risk complicating what was clearly an internal deadly matter, potentially putting the girl in more danger, or call the number, thrusting herself directly into the path of a monster. She grabbed her own cheap burner phone, her hand shaking so badly she almost dropped it. The dial tone sounded impossibly loud in the small room. She punched in the number from the laminated card. It rang once, twice, then a click. The voice that answered was polished, deep, and utterly devoid of warmth. You have reached a private line. State your business and your affiliation. You have 10 seconds. Maya's breath hitched. She swallowed, finding the deep well of courage she kept hidden. She couldn't sound weak. Not now. My name is Maya Thompson, she said, forcing her voice into a low, steady pitch. I don't have an affiliation. I have your daughter. Silence. Absolute paralyzing silence broken only by the tiny static of the connection and the distant rumble of thunder. Maya could hear her own blood rushing in her ears. Then the voice returned. It was still soft, but the polished layer was gone, replaced by something cold and impossibly sharp, like a blade resting on her throat. Every syllable was an order. Repeat that, Maya Thompson. Speak clearly and do not lie. Who are you and what are your demands? The name Vincent Chun was not used, but the authority behind the voice was staggering, instantly confirming Maya's fears about the man on the other end. I'm not lying. I don't want money, Maya insisted, her grip tightening on the phone. I found her about 10 minutes ago tucked in the alley by the Lingerette Deluxe on 17th Street. She is wet. She is hypothermic. And she is in shock. She can't speak. She keeps trying to say something, but no words come out. I've dried her off and wrapped her in a blanket. She paused, taking a necessary breath. The number I called was on a card she was holding. It had the name Vincent Chun on it, and the word Dada written underneath. The sound on the other end of the line was not a gasp or an oath, but the chillingly specific sound of a piece of heavy equipment being set down on a hard surface followed by a sudden, terrifying shift in the atmosphere. It was the sound of a man transitioning instantly from quiet control to lethal intent. Describe her, the voice commanded. No details missed now. Maya complied, describing the girl's expensive clothes, her dark hair, the glassy look in her eyes. The details about the silk dress seemed to solidify the terrible reality for the man on the other end. You said she can't speak. Is she hurt? Are there injuries? Vincent Chin's voice was low, vibrating with suppressed fury that was almost physical. No visible injuries, Maya reported truthfully. No blood. I think she's in a profound state of shock. I believe she needs professional medical attention, but I couldn't wait for an ambulance. Where are you, Maya Thompson? Vincent Chin asked. The question was not a request for information. It was a demand for coordinates. I'm in my apartment above the laundromat, 17th Street, apartment 5C. I'll open the door for you, but I need you to know I am alone. I have no weapon, and I have only been trying to help your child. Stay exactly where you are, Vincent Chun instructed, his voice now a terrifying purr of controlled power. Do not hang up this phone. Do not move from that room. Do not speak to anyone. If I detect any movement, any trickery, or if that girl suffers any further harm, I will know and I will find you. You will regret the day you ever picked up that phone. Do you understand?" "I understand," Maya said, though her throat was now tight with a fear colder than the rain. She knew she was standing on the edge of a precipice, staring down into the darkness of the city's most feared operator. She was just a poor girl who cleaned floors. He commanded empires. But his daughter was safe for now in her arms. "Good," Vincent said. "I'm putting you on speaker. Do not speak unless spoken to, but I need to hear the ambient noise. I will be there in 12 minutes. If you hang up, my team will treat you as an aggressor." Maya could hear muffled rapid-fire commands in Korean being issued on the other end. The conversation low, sharp, and brutally efficient. Sirens, not of the police, but of something far more specialized, were already beginning to sound faintly in the distance. The entire machinery of the city's darkness was turning for one little girl, and Maya Thompson was now standing right in the eye of the storm. She lowered the phone to the table, placing it next to the empty ginger teacup. She looked at the girl, whose small dark eyes finally turned toward Maya's face. A flicker of something close to recognition in their depths. "You're okay, sweetie," Maya whispered, stroking the damp hair away from the girl's forehead. "Your daddy is coming. You're going to be safe now." The girl, finally able to muster a response, lifted her hand and weakly tapped Maya's chest, where her heart hammered a frantic, terrified beat. It was the last silent communication before the heavy, rhythmic beat of approaching black SUVs drowned out the sound of the rain. The 12 minutes were up. The roar was deafening. A sudden oppressive sound that rattled the single pane of glass in Maya's apartment window. It wasn't the sound of police sirens. Those had a distinct, hopeful wail, but the deep, aggressive thrum of high-end, heavily modified engines followed by the hiss of tires abruptly braking on wet asphalt. The entire neighborhood, usually used to the city's low-level chaos, fell into a stunned silence. Maya, sitting rigid on the edge of the sofa, knew exactly what it was. Vincent Chin wasn't sending a driver or a bodyguard. He was sending a small army, and he was likely leading it. The girl, Sophia, Maya realized with a sudden protective surge, tucked deeper into the fleece blanket, her gaze darting toward the apartment door with the wide-eyed fear of a trapped animal. Maya gently wrapped her arms around the child, shielding her from the door. "It's okay, sweetie. It's him," Maya murmured, her own heart trying to beat its way out of her chest. "You're safe." The next sounds were the metallic clack of car doors opening in unison, the rapid, echoing footfalls of heavy combat boots on the narrow metal fire escape stairs, and then a series of sickening, splintering thuds as Vincent's security detail efficiently dismantled the flimsy locked door of the main building below. They bypassed the stairs entirely. There was a brief, sharp curse from Ruth, the laundromat attendant, and then silence again. The only entrance to Maya's fifth-floor apartment was through a single thin wooden door, protected only by a chain lock and a basic deadbolt. The men didn't bother knocking. A single colossal kick slammed the door inward with a violent crash, tearing the deadbolt from the frame and sending splintered wood chips flying across the tiny room. For figures in heavy black tactical gear, anonymous, silent, and armed with chilling efficiency, poured into the apartment first. They moved in a perfectly synchronized sweep, their eyes instantly cataloging every square inch of the room, every object, every shadow. Two positioned themselves instantly by the window, establishing a perimeter. The other two, weapons lowered but ready, cleared the cramped kitchen and the bathroom alcove in under 3 seconds. They found nothing. Just Maya Thompson clutching a child on a worn sofa, a half-used bottle of generic painkiller on the tiny coffee table, and the lingering scent of bleach from her earlier shift. Then the final figure stepped through the ruined doorway. Vincent Chun was nothing like the stereotypical flashy movie gangster. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored charcoal wool overcoat, which somehow remained pristine despite the storm covering a dark, simple suit. His presence was not defined by bulk or loudness, but by an unnerving absolute stillness. He was devastatingly handsome, with high, sharp cheekbones and eyes, dark, intelligent, and utterly empty of emotion that swept over the room with the cold, comprehensive efficiency of a high-tech scanner. He ignored Maya completely at first. His focus, absolute and singular, landed entirely on the small blanket-wrapped figure on the sofa. A guttural sound, rough and involuntary, escaped his throat. It was the only sign of the raw seismic emotion churning beneath his controlled exterior. The sound of a terrifyingly powerful man, seeing his own vulnerability, realized in the form of his injured child. Vincent Chun crossed the short distance in 2 long strides, kneeling smoothly on the filthy floor beside the sofa. He reached out a hand, his fingers long and elegant, but hesitated before touching the girl. "Sophia," he whispered, his voice dangerously soft, speaking in Korean first, then switching seamlessly to English. "Dada is here. It's okay." Sophia, who had been stiff with fear since the door exploded, finally reacted. A weak, strangled sound came from her throat, and she launched herself out of Maya's protective hold and into her father's arms. Vincent Chun held her, burying his face in her damp hair, his body momentarily shuddering with relief and rage. For a single fleeting second, Maya saw the mask of the Mafia boss crack, revealing the raw, frantic love of a parent. Then the moment passed. Vincent Chin's head snapped up. His eyes now focused on Maya were lethal. He spoke to his team, his voice low, sharp Korean commands that Maya didn't need to understand to grasp their meaning. One of the guards instantly produced a high-tech emergency medical kit and began a rapid, non-invasive assessment of Sophia, checking her vitals and temperature. Another guard efficiently sealed the shattered doorway. Vincent Chin didn't rise. He remained kneeling, holding Sophia securely with one arm, while the other hand rested palm down on the small table where Maya's phone sat. He didn't touch the phone. He merely claimed the space. "Maya Thompson," he said, her name a flat statement of fact, not a question. "Look at me." Maya met his gaze, refusing to flinch. She had no leverage, no defense, but she also had nothing to hide. The door didn't need to be broken. "I told you I would open it. I do not take risks with my daughter's life or the integrity of my operations," Vincent Chin countered, his voice like cold, hard steel. "You found her. You called the number. Now you tell me everything, starting with your motive. Why didn't you call the police? Why didn't you leave her for someone else to find? You live in a neighborhood where leaving a small, unresponsive child on a sidewalk is a common occurrence. Why did you intervene?" Maya shifted slightly, trying to ignore the 4-armed shadows surrounding them. "Because I'm not a monster, Mr. Chun." She was shivering. She was little. "I'm cold and wet most of the time. I knew what that felt like. I couldn't just leave her there to die." The honesty in Maya's voice seemed to resonate with Vincent Chun. He studied her face for a long moment, his dark eyes reading her expression like a diagnostic scan. One of the guards approached, speaking quietly in Korean. Vincent Chin nodded, his gaze never leaving Maya. "The physician reports her core temperature is stabilized, but she is suffering from severe shock and a mild case of exposure. The inability to speak is likely psychological, a trauma response," Vincent Chin translated. His eyes narrowed. "You did exactly the right things. You kept her warm. You gave her sugar. And you stabilized her before help arrived." Vincent Chun then turned his attention to his daughter. "Sophia, can you tell Dada where your shoes are?" Sophia shook her head, her face buried against his chest, still unable to speak. "Did anyone hurt you?" She shook her head again, burying it deeper. Vincent Chin carefully stood, lifting the child effortlessly. He addressed Maya one last time, his voice shifting back to the quiet, terrifying authority of the boss. "Maya Thompson, you have done me a service that cannot be measured in cash. I believe your story not because you are convincing, but because my daughter who trusts no one accepted your comfort. You are not a fool, and you are not greedy. That makes you either the most dangerous person I have ever met or the most foolish." He glanced at the ruined door and the cracked coffee table. "My team will secure this area and replace everything we broke. You will accept whatever compensation you need for this apartment and your employment. Do not refuse. This is not a reward. It is a transaction to settle the debt of the damaged property and the disruption. You will hear from my representative by morning." Vincent Chin looked at the laminated card Maya had set down. "Now, one final question before I go. Where did you find the card?" "It should have been sewn into her jacket." Maya pointed to the phone. She was holding it in her hand. It was wet, but the lamination kept it protected. Vincent Chin's expression darkened, turning colder than the storm outside. The card clutched in Sophia's hand meant she had been trying to call him after she was separated, meaning the separation was likely a deliberate act, a kidnapping attempt gone wrong, or a security breach from within. The card should have been sewn into her jacket, not loose in her hand. The jacket was missing. He looked around the room, the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. The alley, the missing jacket, the card, it all pointed to an attempted abduction that had somehow failed, leaving his daughter exposed. And Maya Thompson as the unpredictable variable that saved her life. The girl's jacket is not here. If you find it, contact the same number immediately. Under no circumstances should you touch or examine it yourself. I understand, Maya confirmed. With a final chilling nod that was more a dismissal than thanks, Vincent Chin pivoted. His security detail flanking him and the medic carrying Sophia's equipment moved out with the same silent, brutal efficiency with which they had arrived. The apartment was suddenly silent, save for the dripping rain and Maya's ragged breathing. She stared at the gaping hole where her door used to be, now hastily covered by a piece of plywood one of the guards had found. The oppressive weight of their presence was gone, replaced by a lingering residue of danger. Maya stood up, her legs weak, and walked to the plywood barricade. She had saved a child's life, but she had also irrevocably attracted the attention of the most powerful and dangerous man in the city. The transaction was far from over. Vincent Chin never left debts unpaid, whether they were owed to him or by him, and Maya had just become the recipient of a debt of unimaginable magnitude. She cleaned up the mess on the floor, picking up the splinters of wood, knowing that the real cleanup of her life was just beginning. Maya has now met Vincent Chin and survived the initial terrifying confrontation, securing Sophia's safety. However, her poverty and moral decision have made her an object of intense suspicious interest to the Mafia boss. The morning after the storm, Maya's apartment was still. The air no longer smelled of rain and fear, but of fresh pine and the faint clean scent of new materials. While Maya had slept fitfully for barely 3 hours on the newly delivered high-quality mattress Vincent's men had silently installed, his cleanup crew had been ruthlessly efficient. The broken door frame was replaced entirely with a heavy reinforced steel door painted to match the building's peeling gray facade. The cracked coffee table was gone, replaced by a simple, sturdy wooden one. Her meager cleaning supplies had been swapped for commercial-grade equipment, the kind she could only dream of using at work. Even the small crack in her bathroom mirror, which she'd lived with for 2 years, was repaired. It was an intimidating display of silent, efficient power. They had been in and out fixing everything they broke while she slept. Maya sat at the new table, sipping instant coffee, waiting. She still wore the same faded clothes, refusing to touch the stack of brand-new, expensive blankets left neatly folded on the sofa. She had saved a life, not sold her soul, and she intended to keep that boundary clear. At exactly 9 a.m., the buzzer, now functional, rang with a crisp, modern tone. Maya opened the heavy new door to find a man standing there. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark suit that screamed expensive but understated. His face was serious, professional, but not unfriendly. In his hands, he carried a briefcase and a large manila envelope. "Miss Thompson," he said, his voice polite but formal. "My name is Marcus Kim. I represent Mr. Chun. May I come in?" Maya stepped aside, gesturing him into the apartment. Marcus took in the renovations with a practiced eye, nodding slightly as if checking items off an invisible list. "Everything appears to be in order," he said, setting the briefcase on the new table. "Mr. Chun wanted to ensure your living situation was improved after last night's disruption." Maya remained standing, her arms crossed. "I told him I didn't want money." Marcus smiled slightly, the first hint of warmth in his demeanor. "Mr. Chun is aware of your position. He also mentioned you were not greedy, which he found refreshing." He opened the briefcase, revealing neat stacks of documents. "This is not charity, Miss Thompson. Mr. Chun has a proposition for you." Maya's stomach tightened. "What kind of proposition?" Marcus pulled out a folder, placing it carefully on the table. "You saved his daughter's life. In Mr. Chen's world, that creates a debt that must be honored. However, he also recognizes that you are now, how should I put this, a person of interest to certain individuals who might wish to use you to get to him." The implication hit Maya like a cold wave. "You're saying I'm in danger." I'm saying you're now connected to Mr. Chun whether you like it or not. The people who took Sophia will eventually realize their plan failed. They will investigate. They will find you. Marcus opened the folder, revealing what appeared to be a property deed. Mr. Chun is offering you protection. In exchange, you would accept ownership of this building, the Lingaret Deluxe, and manage his interests in this neighborhood. You would become his eyes and ears on the ground, so to speak. Maya stared at the documents, her mind racing. You want me to be his spy. We want you to be safe and useful. The two are not mutually exclusive. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Consider the alternative, Miss Thompson. You return to your previous life, cleaning floors, struggling to pay rent, and hoping that the people who tried to kidnap Mr. Chen's daughter don't decide to tie up loose ends. Or, you accept his protection, his resources, and a position that will ensure you never have to worry about basic survival again. Maya picked up the deed, scanning the legal language that made little sense to her. What would I have to do? Live here. Maintain the building. Report anything unusual in the neighborhood. Occasionally provide information about local activities. Nothing more dangerous than what any good neighbor would do, but with significantly better compensation. The door opened without a knock. Vincent Chin stepped inside, alone this time, but no less intimidating in broad daylight. He wore a simple black sweater and dark jeans, but the casual clothes did nothing to diminish his presence. Marcus, thank you. That will be all. Marcus gathered his materials and left without another word. Vincent Chin stood near the window, looking out at the street below. You're considering refusing, he said without turning around. I'm considering my options. Your options are limited, Miss Thompson, but I respect that you're thinking it through. He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. My daughter asked about you this morning. First words she's spoken since last night. She wanted to know if the nice lady was okay. Maya felt a tug at her heart. How is she? Physically fine. Emotionally, it will take time. The doctors say she witnessed something traumatic before she escaped. We're still investigating what exactly happened. Vincent Chin moved closer, but not threateningly. You showed kindness to a child when you could have walked away. In my world, kindness is rare. I value rare things. What if I say no? Then you say no. I'll ensure your safety through other means. But you'll remain in danger, and you'll remain poor. His eyes hardened slightly. I don't make this offer twice, Maya Thompson. Maya looked around the apartment, transformed overnight from a barely livable space into something approaching comfortable. She thought about her 2 jobs, her perpetually empty bank account, the constant stress of not knowing if she could make rent. If I do this, what happens to my life? My job? My independence? Your life improves. Your jobs become unnecessary. Your independence? He paused, considering his words. That depends on how you define independence. You'll have financial freedom, but you'll also have responsibilities. Loyalties. To you. To my family. To the people under my protection. Maya closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision. I need time to think. You have until tonight. After that, I make alternative arrangements. Vincent Chin walked to the door, then stopped. Maya, my daughter is alive because you made a choice to help someone in need. Now I'm asking you to make another choice. The difference is, this time, you'll be helping yourself as well. After he left, Maya sat alone in her transformed apartment, staring at the deed to a building she'd walked past thousands of times, never imagining she could own anything more than the clothes on her back. Outside, the neighborhood continued its daily rhythm, unaware that everything in Maya Thompson's world had changed in the span of 12 hours. The night came too quickly. Maya had spent the day walking the building, really looking at it for the first time. The Lingaret Deluxe was run down, but structurally sound. The laundromat on the ground floor was actually profitable, according to Ruth, who seemed thrilled at the prospect of Maya becoming the new owner. Better you than the slumlord who owns it now, Ruth had said. At least you understand what it's like to live here. As evening approached, Maya found herself standing in her apartment, the deed in her hands. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. This time, Vincent Chun entered with Sophia beside him. The little girl looked healthier, wearing clean clothes and holding a small stuffed animal, but her eyes still held shadows. Sophia wanted to see you, Vincent Chun said simply. The child approached Maya shyly, then suddenly threw her arms around Maya's waist. Thank you for helping me, Sophia whispered, her voice small but clear. Maya knelt down, meeting the girl's eyes. I'm so glad you're okay, sweetheart. Sophia smiled for the first time since Maya had found her. Daddy says you might live here forever now. Like family. Maya looked up at Vincent Chun, who was watching the interaction with an expression she couldn't quite read. Would you like that? Sophia asked. Maya felt something shift inside her chest. This child, this brave little girl, was offering her something Maya had never had, belonging. I think I would like that very much, Maya said softly. Sophia beamed and hugged her again before returning to her father's side. Vincent Chin extended his hand to Maya. Welcome to the family, Maya Thompson. Maya shook his hand, feeling the calluses that spoke of a man who had worked for everything he'd built, despite his current wealth and power. The deed is yours, Vincent Chin said. The building is yours. Your life, however complicated it may become, is yours. He stood up, towering over her. This is the only way I can ensure two things, that you are safe and that my daughter's savior is tethered to my protection. You are now too important to ignore and too dangerous to let wander. You refuse money, so I give you power and protection instead. He gave her a long, penetrating look. You are no longer a cleaning woman, Maya Thompson. You are now Vincent Chin's eyes on the ground and the owner of this block. Your life is no longer yours, but it will be safe, and you will never be cold or hungry again. This is my repayment. Maya looked at the deed in her hand, a monumental, overwhelming gift that felt more like a golden cage. The steel door, the new furniture, the deed to a building. She had traded her quiet, struggling life for an eternity of danger and privilege. She met Vincent Chin's gaze, realizing that the confrontation was over and the binding contract had just begun. So be it, Maya whispered, closing the folder. My life for Sophia's safety. Not your life, Vincent Chin corrected, turning to leave. Your loyalty, and unlike money, loyalty is never refused. He walked to the reinforced door, opened it, and was gone, leaving Maya Thompson, the poor girl who cleaned floors, as the unlikely new proprietor of the Lingerette Deluxe, now inextricably linked to the shadow empire of Vincent Chin. 3 weeks into her new life, Maya had settled into a routine that felt surreal. Each morning, she walked through the building that was somehow hers, checking on the laundromat, greeting tenants, and slowly beginning to understand the weight of her new responsibilities. Ruth had become an invaluable ally, explaining the building's quirks and introducing Maya to the neighborhood dynamics she'd never noticed as just another struggling resident. Marcus visited twice weekly, always professional, always bringing updates and subtle instructions. Watch for strangers asking questions. Note any unusual vehicles parked too long on the street. Report anything that feels wrong. The work was easier than cleaning floors, but carried intention that never fully left Maya's shoulders. Sophia visited every few days, always with Vincent Chun or one of his security team. The little girl had recovered her voice but remained shy, clinging to Maya during their brief encounters. These visits were Maya's favorite part of her new existence. Watching Sophia slowly heal and finding herself genuinely caring for the child who had changed everything. It was during the 4th week that Maya first encountered the darker aspects of her new world. A man appeared at the laundromat, well-dressed but with eyes that moved constantly, scanning exits and corners. He asked Ruth casual questions about the building's owner, about any changes in management. Ruth, following Maya's instructions, provided only basic information while mentally cataloging every detail to report later. That evening, Maya called the number Vincent Chun had given her. There was a man here today, she reported, describing the stranger in detail. He seemed very interested in who owns the building now. Vincent Chin's response was immediate and chilling. Lock your doors tonight. Stay away from the windows. Someone will be watching the building, but don't look for them. Maya spent that night lying awake, listening to every sound, understanding for the first time that her comfortable new life came with very real dangers. In the morning, she found a small envelope slipped under her door. Inside, a photograph of the man who had visited the laundromat, with a red X marked across his face. The message was clear. The problem had been handled. Over the following months, Maya's education in Vincent Chin's world continued. She learned to recognize the signs of surveillance, to distinguish between legitimate visitors and potential threats. She discovered that several other businesses in the neighborhood were also under Vincent's protection, forming a network of eyes and ears that kept the area safer than most parts of the city. She also learned about Sophia's mother, a woman who had died in a car accident 3 years earlier, leaving Vincent Chin a widowed father struggling to balance his criminal empire with raising a traumatized daughter. The kidnapping attempt on Sophia hadn't been random. It was orchestrated by a rival organization trying to leverage Vincent's only weakness, his love for his child. Maya's role in the organization gradually expanded. Her natural intelligence and genuine care for the community made her invaluable in ways Vincent hadn't anticipated. She mediated disputes between tenants, helped coordinate legitimate business operations, and slowly became the public face of Vincent's more benevolent activities in the neighborhood. The building itself transformed under Maya's management. She used Vincent's resources to make repairs that had been neglected for years, installed better security, and created a sense of community among residents who had previously lived in isolation and fear. The laundromat became a gathering place where neighbors felt safe to linger and talk. But Maya's greatest challenge came 6 months after Sophia's rescue, when Vincent Chin's enemies made their next move. Maya was closing the laundromat late one evening when she noticed the street was unusually quiet. Even Ruth had left early, claiming a family emergency that Maya now suspected was orchestrated to get her away from the building. The few remaining tenants had all found reasons to visit friends or relatives that night. As Maya locked the front door, she heard the sound that had haunted her dreams for months, the low rumble of multiple vehicles approaching in coordinated formation. But this time, the cars weren't Vincent Chin's distinctive black SUVs. These were unmarked sedans, moving with predatory precision toward her building. Maya's training kicked in. Instead of panicking, she activated the silent alarm Vincent's team had installed, then calmly walked to the back of the building and up the stairs to her apartment. She had 3 minutes, maybe 4, before they breached the front entrance. In her apartment, Maya opened the hidden safe Vincent had installed behind her bathroom mirror. Inside were a secure phone, cash, a passport with her new identity, and a small handgun she'd learned to use during weekly training sessions with Marcus. The weight of the weapon in her hand felt both foreign and familiar. The building's front door exploded inward just as Maya sealed herself into the panic room Vincent's crew had constructed behind her bedroom wall. Through hidden cameras, she watched armed figures in tactical gear sweep through her apartment with military precision. They weren't here to kill her, she realized. They were here to take her. These men understood her value to Vincent Chun. Maya Thompson, the woman who had saved his daughter, who had become his trusted lieutenant in this neighborhood, who represented his attempt to build something legitimate alongside his criminal enterprise. Taking her would be a devastating blow, both strategically and emotionally. Maya activated the secure phone and sent a single coded message to Vincent Chun. Then she waited. The response was swift and overwhelming. Within minutes, the building was surrounded by Vincent's security forces. The kidnappers found themselves trapped in the same building they'd planned to use as their hunting ground. What followed was a brief but vicious firefight that left 2 of the intruders dead and the rest surrendering when they realized escape was impossible. Vincent Chun arrived personally, his usual composed demeanor replaced by barely controlled rage. He found Maya emerging from the panic room, shaken but unharmed, still holding the weapon she'd been prepared to use. "You did well," he said simply, but Maya could see the relief in his eyes. "You followed protocol. You stayed safe." Maya looked at the destruction in her apartment, the blood on her floor, the reality of the violence that would always hover at the edges of her new life. "This won't be the last time, will it?" she said. It wasn't a question. "No," Vincent Chin admitted. "But each time, we'll be more prepared. Each time, you'll be safer." He gestured to Marcus, who approached with a tablet displaying surveillance footage from around the building. "We identified their base of operations before they even reached your door. This attack gave us the location of their leadership. By morning, this particular threat will no longer exist." Maya understood the implication. Vincent Chin's retaliation would be swift and final. Standing in her damaged apartment, surrounded by the aftermath of violence, Maya felt the last vestige of her old life slip away. She was no longer Maya Thompson, the struggling janitor who had found a child in an alley. She was Vincent Chin's lieutenant, a woman with blood on her hands and enemies who would kill her without hesitation. But when Sophia appeared in the doorway, having insisted on coming with her father despite the danger, and ran to hug Maya with fierce intensity, Maya knew she had made the right choice. This child, this strange family she had found, was worth the danger and complexity of her new world. 3 months later, Maya stood on the roof of her building, looking out over a neighborhood that had become genuinely safer under her watch. Crime rates had dropped. Local businesses were thriving under Vincent's protection. Children played in streets that had once been too dangerous for families. Vincent Chin joined her, a rare moment of quiet in their increasingly complex partnership. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "The choice you made that night?" Maya considered the question seriously. She thought about her old life, the endless struggle, the bone-deep exhaustion, the constant fear of not making rent. Then she thought about Sophia's laughter, about the respect she'd earned from the community, about the power to actually help people instead of just surviving. "No," she said finally. "I don't regret it. But I understand the cost now." Vincent Chin nodded. "The cost is always higher than we expect when we make these choices. But some things are worth paying for." Below them, the neighborhood settled into evening. Families gathered for dinner. The laundromat hummed with activity. In the distance, the city's lights twinkled like scattered diamonds, beautiful and dangerous in equal measure. Maya Thompson had climbed the tree when the tiger chased her, and she'd found an entire forest waiting at the top. She was no longer the woman who cleaned floors in the shadows. She was someone who shaped shadows into sanctuary, who turned fear into safety, who proved that sometimes the most dangerous choices lead to the most necessary transformations. As Vincent Chin's empire evolved, so did Maya's role within it. She became the bridge between his criminal organization and the legitimate world, the proof that power could be wielded with compassion, that strength didn't require the abandonment of humanity. And every night, when she locked the doors of the building that had become her kingdom, Maya remembered the shivering child in the alley who had started it all. Sophia, now thriving and safe, visiting weekly with stories of school and friends and dreams of the future. The transaction that began with rain and terror had become something neither Maya nor Vincent Chin could have imagined. Not just loyalty purchased with protection, but genuine family forged through shared danger and mutual respect. Maya Thompson's story was far from over, but she had learned to embrace the uncertainty. In Vincent Chin's world, survival meant adaptation, and love meant being willing to fight for what mattered most. She had found both, and she would protect them with everything she had become. The woman who had once been invisible now commanded respect throughout the city's underworld. The cleaner who had been overlooked now decided who lived and who disappeared. The frightened girl who had made a desperate phone call had evolved into someone who answered such calls with authority and resolve. And when the next crisis came, as it inevitably would, Maya Thompson would be ready. She had learned to speak the language of power fluently, but she had never forgotten the dialect of compassion that had saved a child's life and transformed her own. In the end, that was what mattered most. Not the money or the property or the fear she could inspire, but the family she had chosen and the community she had built. Maya had discovered that sometimes the most profound strength comes not from what you're willing to destroy, but from what you're determined to protect. The rain still fell on the city's alleys, and children still needed saving. But now Maya Thompson was someone with the power to answer when salvation called her name.